Hello and welcome to Boston Media Theory. I'm Marcus Breen. This is a show where we talk about any number of things related to both Boston and people who live and work in Boston or who may be passing through. They may be academics, researchers, advocates, activists, dog walkers. Although we haven't had a dog walker yet, but I'm looking forward to a dog walker. But we talk to people who are generally engaged in communication and media in Boston. So today I'm delighted to have Mary Klug here, who is the author of a remarkable new memoir, and it's called Butterfly Dreams, Delving into China, Cross-Cultural Friendships and the Environment. So welcome, Mary.
Thank you,
Great to have you here.
Thank you.
Now, I say the book's remarkable, and I don't use that term lightly. Incredibly enjoyable read, and I say remarkable because it begins with you as a flight attendant. So this is the first time I've ever interviewed a former flight attendant, and but you also were able, through Wheels Within Wheels, and you can describe this to us, to visit China for the first time, was it 1983? That is going back quite a while. Now, it's not pre-revolutionary, you're not that old, none of us are, but it is a significant amount of time to observe changes in China and in society, and you've been perhaps a traveller with those changes in your own life. One of the reasons I wanted to make the point about being remarkable is that you present this book as basically a passionate encounter between yourself and China. And that what then struck me is that you're not writing as a specialist about China from an academic perspective or from perhaps the perspective of international relations or Chinese politics or cultural studies, and yet you have tremendous insights about many of the details of Chinese life and living. So it's a lively catalogue of your journey as an American through China and different parts of China, and of course a personal account. So you've had a long history, that's a longish introduction. But Mary, the first question is, what was your motivation in writing this book?
Well, my motivation for writing this book goes all the way back to the time when I was about 10 years old. And I stood by my father's side and told my father I wanted to travel the world and write a book about it. And lo and behold, it finally came to fruition. I had three dreams. One was to become a flight attendant, one was to become a teacher, and the third was to write the book. And so I have finished my three. Now it's getting it out there, obviously. Right. But in a more recent iteration of why I've written it is because I want to put a face on the Chinese people, just like the rest of the world. They have good people, they have extremely good people, they have extremely smart people, and then there are some other things that maybe, the rest of the world has too. But they're like all the rest of us. And in more recent times, there has been some demonizing, and I really want to make sure that that comes clearly through my book. My friends, all of the people that have helped me, that they are just, wonderful, regular people with all the foibles and all of the wonderfulness of the rest of us. So that's one part. The other part is in 2011, I started becoming very involved with the environment through an organization called the Pachamama Alliance. And that organization has a symposium. Its purpose is to bring forth an environmentally sustainable, socially just, spiritually fulfilling human presence on our earth. That's right. Pretty audacious.
Yes, well, we can talk about that later.
Okay.
We'll move to that before we jump ahead too much.
Okay.
One of the points that's worth making, of course, is that you and I met through the US-China People's Friendship Association.
Yes.
And it's only fair to say that your orientation towards wanting people to understand the range of humanity, if you like, being just shared in China just as it is with across the rest of the world, is something that's pretty universal.
Yes.
The character of people
Yes.
isn't as if there's something foreign or other
Right.
about them. Right?
Right.
So that's a very important point, and you've been involved, as I understand it, and you described this in one of the chapters of the book, with the Friendship Association for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a deeper commitment there too, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I fully believe that if we human beings know each other, we're not going to want to harm each other. And the more people on all around the world that know each other, but in particular because I'm involved in China, the Chinese people and the American people, I believe that the more of us that know each other and know of each other and know the humanity of one another, better off we'll be in the long run.
And that's one of the ambitions of the Chinese leadership, at least in recent times, I think since 2017, to say let's introduce journalists to China. Let's introduce as many people as we can to the country so that they can have the experience that you've had. And from my understanding of it, and I'm a fairly close follower of things Chinese, it seems to be quite an effective technique to introduce people to other human beings.
Yes.
Right? And then discover, they're not two-headed monsters. They're not the worst.
Right.
It's very effective, and I've been a beneficiary of that myself, both before 2017 and after 2017, of being there with people and just really being very impressed, not only by the safety of the place, but by the quality of the development, and by the way that they interact with Westerners.
Right.
So or foreigners.
Right.
Anyway,
Right.
and of course, I think we're moving beyond that problem, at least for many people, the problem of easily demonising Chinese people and China, and one would hope that would be something perhaps that your book could contribute to.
I hope so.
I hope so too. So, what about the title? Let's talk about the title and let's see the book. Let's. Would you mind holding the book up so we can see it?
Okay.
Here it is.
Here it is.
Right. Butterfly Dreams, and it is a beautiful cover with a couple of butterflies. So why the
Yes.
title?
Why the title? Good question. I love the concept of transformation to begin with. And there are many different stories in Chinese myths and culture about the butterfly. One in particular I was drawn to, and that is a story about one of the ancient Taoists named Zhuangzhou. And Zhuangzhou was flitting around as a butterfly in his dream, not knowing, of course, that he was dreaming he was a butterfly. And then he woke up and he thought to himself, am I a butterfly dreaming I'm Zhuangzhou? Or am I Zhuangzhou dreaming I'm a butterfly? And that whole concept of what is transformation, what is one, I can't pretend that I understand all of it, but I'm very, very interested in the concept of just even the transformation of the caterpillar to the butterfly, the amazing transformation that happens with that. So I was in an eco-village in China last year. I was still, oh my heavens, you should hear the iterations of the titles of my books, of this book. It has gone all over the place. And I was walking in this eco-village among the rice paddies, and they on this in this eco village, Huadao Eco Village, they have a lot of beautiful sculptures of like Confucius and Lao Tzu. And I came upon this gigantic butterfly sculpture with Zhuangzhou as the body. And I took a picture of it, and it's in the book. And that was I thought, the minute I saw that, I went, something with that's going to be my title.
Well, I'm particularly taken, although I know this is a little bit off topic, with the sense of transformation and the kind of, if you like, the liminal sort of being between or in an unsteady middle space between whether you're dreaming or whether you're not dreaming. For the Lacanians who are watching, we know how important this is to our understanding of who we are, how we imagine ourselves, what we desire to be, right, and how our desire is manufactured and or innate, if you like, and certainly, but mostly conditional. And the idea of your own transformation then sort of resonates in the book, and
yes,
and I think it's a tremendous achievement in the sense in which you've tried to describe a deeply personal engagement with Chinese people, and I suppose it will be useful then to move to that notion of friendship, of what your friendship with Chinese people has meant over these many years. And if there's any difference to the quality of the friendship that might be that you've experienced, partly through some connection with a different kind of sense of community or a different orientation towards peace or to family. There are a number of themes, aren't there, in Chinese society which differ from ours, and rightly so. Any thoughts, any responses to that?
Well, that's a big
question.
Question.
Friendship, yes. Well, let's just stick with the friendships in China then and see if you can unpack that a little.
Well, I mean, the friendships in China are more than friendships.
Well, there you go. What are they?
They're community, but they're also family. I think of my friends in China as a large part of my family. In fact, a large part of my family that understands me maybe sometimes better than maybe perhaps some of my own family. And that having that community over there feels like home. And when I haven't been able to go for a while, I feel a longing. And so I appreciate, love, respect all of the people that I know in China because they're wonderful people. And
well, they're certainly incredibly generous and giving in the way in which they orientate themselves to other people and to each other's. Is there any possibility that that's a little bit of a myth in the sense in which we as Westerners may still be seen as people who need to be shown deference, or is that not the case? In other words, do you feel like you're meeting them?
I was shown deference a lot back in 1983 through, I would say, early 2000s. And then things started shifting.
Right.
And as China became more sophisticated and their people became more sophisticated, the deferential treatment was tempered. I say tempered because I'm always treated with respect as far as I'm concerned. And respect for being older and being a teacher and being an activist, all of those things. So it's kind of both ways.
Right. Certainly, one of the things that's important about this experience is, again, the depths of one's experience with people who are outside the United States or outside the West, who have something that's just a little bit precious, but in a positive way.
Right.
About the relationships, and I'd certainly say the same thing about the people that I know in China and the friendships that I've had, and that includes Chinese students as well here in Boston. So it's fascinating. Now I don't want to universalise that and say everybody is in this category, but certainly it's notable.
Right.
You mentioned teaching in China.
Yes.
So let's hear about that. So what was that? How did that happen, and what was it that you were teaching?
Well, I was teaching English as a second language, and I was able to go over because I was able to take a 3-year leave of absence from Delta Airlines. And I was able, because of I had led friendship tours before the leave became available. And so I had a lot of contacts. And those contacts helped me to find a position. And I went over in 1995 to 1997 and taught English in several several institutions. The main one being the Hangzhou Normal University, and well, at that time I think it was called Normal College. Anyway. The big thing that happened with me when I went over to teach is I learned that, you learn a lot more when you're living somewhere and you're challenged more when you're living somewhere, or at least I should say in China. But I suspect it's probably true. Culture shock is a reason. There's a reason for that term. And so I have a feeling that a large part of the book that I think is interesting on part 3 is kind of about those struggles that I had, some of the struggles that I had, because I did. I struggled. Living in China was not visiting China for a month, and that's, and I think that's true of probably any place one would.
Yeah. I'll just throw this in as a gratuitous comment, and that is, I've always been, for many years, I've been of the view that you should never go and live in a place that you only know by being a tourist. In other words, so let's say you go to Peru and say, oh, this is fantastic, I love it, I'm going to come and live here. And there's often many rude awakenings. And as an Australian-born immigrant to the United States, I've been through that similar culture shock too. You realise that the interstices of daily life are very different.
Very different.
When you get sick, you realise you don't have health insurance coming from a country that has universal health insurance.
Well, you lose a lot of control, particularly when you're in a country like China, and so losing that control is something that one has to learn how to deal with. I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I could act sometimes in ways that I don't really like that I did, and but I think that's part of the growth. That's part of the growth of living in another country. Without living in another country, maybe I would not have learned that about myself and understood more about who I am as a person and grown as a person.
Right. Yeah, that's great, and it's certainly valuable to think of what at least until perhaps the Trump administration 2025, there's been a pretty steady flow of people between China and the US. Thankfully, there still is.
Yes.
And it's not so much a two-way traffic, but the more traffic there is, presumably the better off we'll all be.
Exactly. That's what we need.
Let's turn now from teaching to something that's not really that far removed from teaching English as a foreign language, although it's a specialisation. And this is your work in environmental work, environmental teaching, education, and so on. Yeah. How that came about, I remember it struck me as being, here's a Unitarian church. A particular, I don't know if you're Unitarian, but here's a Unitarian church, and this idea of connecting ourselves as human beings to nature, and not as opposed to dominating it or being its masters.
Exactly, and that's
something very different.
Big, important aspect of the Pachamama Alliance, which is the alliance that I mentioned before is made a big shift in my life. Going to China made my first big shift. And then I have to say, when I went to that symposium on that winter day in January of 2011 and saw the symposium, I shifted and became an activist for the environment. But a big part of that was I wanted to get back to China in some way. I had taught again in 2006 and 7, but I hadn't really, I didn't know if my time in China was finished. I didn't know if I still had, something more to do there. But I was kind of looking for different things in different ways in order to keep busy, because I had retired by then.
Right.
But I was still teaching. I guess I wasn't retired, was I?
Not really.
Not really. So in 2011, I went to this symposium and I joined the Pachamama Alliance, and I became a facilitator, and I got quickly in touch with my friends in Hangzhou, and I was offered a 2-day gig for a 3-hour symposium. So I turned it into a teaching tool. And that was the very beginning. And so the fourth part of my book is the struggle. First, the struggle to get the symposium into China, and then once I had the teams, having enough energy to do everything that I wanted to do over there. And so it was really an amazing 2011 to 2019. By the time COVID hit, we had teams in China. We had teams in 3 or 4 major teams in 3 or 4 different cities, and minor teams in other places, and. But I think what you were talking about too was the concept that we're all one, that what we do to each other, what we do to this earth, even what we do to ourselves, we're doing to the earth, because we're a part of the earth. We came from the earth. And so how we treat each other, how we treat the earth, and how we treat ourselves, and I know I'm repeating myself, but I can't say it often enough, is how this earth is going to survive in the long run. And it's going to take love. A wonderful woman, Joanna Macy, who just recently passed away, says it's love for this earth that's going to get her through.
Let me just say that this is a wonderful kind of notion of how to connect human beings with the natural environment and with nature. There's also an environmental protection program in China, right? The Chinese state policy of building a beautiful China from 2012. And we've only got 5 minutes left, so I'm sorry to rush you, but how is the Pachamama program that you've been involved with in any way connected with the Chinese state, or is it more like an NGO, or how does it work? Presumably there's no opposition from the Chinese government to what you do.
Yes, and at this point right now, because a lot has changed from 2020 to 2025. What I'm involved with right now in China is a big environmental conference that I will be going to in October. It's international, and China is committed to a sustainable earth. It's true that for a period of time, China was focused on raising the living standards of their people. And they are aware that that has contributed to global warming. Now their people are at a majority of their people are at a good living standard, and now they are incredibly focused on the environment. I was down at the college in Qingdao, at the Ocean University, and it's amazing what they're doing there. And part of what happened is we, from Sweden and Norway and other people, England, who were there, we sat there and we were so frustrated because we want to take home to the world what China's doing. I don't want somebody to say to me, oh, China's interested in the environment? Please don't say that to me, or you're going to get an hour's worth of dialogue on what they're doing.
So they're very, very well advanced, and in many areas, already well ahead in terms of environmental development with sustainability.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though there are problems with still coal burning power plants and so on, but there's, I mean, some of the reforestation programs in deserts are extraordinary. Just to look at, people can see them, look them up.
Yeah, they can on YouTube. Yeah, absolutely.
So what's the prospects? What's the prospects for the immediate to medium future? Do you think China will achieve its goals of both beautification and sustainability?
You know, I am going to answer this question like I answer the question in the back of the book, at the end of the book. If I say no, then we'll be in despair. If I say yes, we'll be in complacency. Let's just keep doing our work.
All right. Well, I think that probably rounds it up, and sounds like a great way of thinking about a commitment that you have made, and you're continuing with your visit to China in October. So I hope that goes well, and I hope it proves to be as major and as exciting for you as it seems it will be, but also this idea of China as a new kind of venture in environmental activism that you've connected with. Perhaps we have something to learn from that, both in the West and elsewhere, and it will be exciting to see how it progresses. So thank you, Mary. Maybe you could hold your book up again. We can see Butterfly Dreams. It's published by Greenfire Press here in Massachusetts.
Yes.
And yes, feel free to look for it at your local distribution bookshop.
Yes.
And you know what I mean. That's it from me. Thank you very much. That's it from Boston Media Theory. Thank you again, Mary. Butterfly Dreams. By all means, folk, keep on dreaming. And until next time, look forward to seeing you from Boston Media Theory and from me, Marcus Breen. Thanks.
In times of struggle, conflict, poverty, good finds a way. Good is happening, even now. Good never stops, and neither does Children International. With support from caring friends, we help provide children and families with the critical essentials they need. Together, we can help end poverty. To learn more, go to children.org